The instructional hierarchy, a conceptual model for understanding the effective components of reading interventions. According to Daly, Lentz, and Boyer, empirical evidence suggests that reading is a skill that can be taught. However, many students lack adequate reading skills that are necessary to meet the demands of society. A recent National Assessment of Educational Progress evaluation revealed that 37% of high school students are proficient at reading. 3% are advanced, and 1/4 fall below the basic level in reading. Without a doubt, these are quite discouraging data. Poor literacy rates may be a result of insufficiently refined assessment and intervention tools available to educators, which in turn makes it difficult to make individualized educational decisions for students. This article argues that assessment and intervention can be linked through a conceptual framework for academic responding, and a refinement of intervention targets can dictate the types of interventions to use at differing levels of student responding. It is an instructional hierarchy that links assessment data on student responding to possible academic interventions. The instructional hierarchy conceptualizes student responding within a learning hierarchy. That is, students pass through a learning hierarchy when grasping a newly learned skill. There are 4 levels of student responding: acquisition, fluency, generalization, and adaptation. The student acquires the skill, becomes fluent in using it, generalizes its use to novel contexts, and then adapts its use to modify the response when necessary according to novel demands. This instructional hierarchy table illustrates and summarizes the emphases and strategies that appear to be most useful at each level of academic responding. As displayed, each level has different corresponding strategies, such as demonstration at acquisition and repeated novel drills at fluency. These strategies are treatment components that lead to mastery at associated levels, and they can also make an intervention effective. Thus, intervention targets can be refined according to levels of student responding. The article's intent, in the words of Daly, Lentz, and Boyer, is to demonstrate the utility of the instructional hierarchy for understanding what makes different reading interventions effective. Howell, Fox, and Moorhead's 1993 curriculum-based evaluation model is considered useful for linking assessment to instructional delivery through a decision-making framework. The curriculum-based evaluation model is referred to as CBE. In this course, we have become familiar with CBM. CBE is not CBM. According to Howell, CBE is a systematic problem-solving process for making education decisions. Daly, Lentz, and Boyer's model is similar to CBE because it uses a similar conceptual framework for academic responding stages. Their model also differs from CBE. Daly, Lentz, and Boyer asserts that their model's conclusions are circumscribed to oral reading competence. Empirical support is examined for the validity of the relationship between treatment components and levels of responding. And their focus is on the relationship between levels of academic responding and instructional delivery. Moreover, the empirical support for the instructional hierarchy provides partial empirical support for the CBE model. According to Daly, Lentz, and Boyer, such frameworks can assist practitioners in making decisions regarding assessments and interventions.
Academic responding occurs in the classroom during curriculum-based activities. In a classroom, teachers allot time for instruction, and the students may or may not be engaged during this instruction. Depending on if they are actively engaged or not engaged, student will either respond accurately or not accurately. Rosenheit and Gettinger refer to the interrelation between allocated times, student engagement, and student success rate as academic learning time. Academic learning time varies among classrooms, but it was found that teachers that devote more time to instruction had students who were more engaged with their academics. Gettinger recommends measuring the amount of time devoted to instruction per day in which students are engaged in curriculum-based activities with more than 80% accuracy. The goal of this was to increase the amount of time that students spend responding accurately by 80%. There were 3 problems associated with this approach, however. The first problem was that individual students will likely need variable amounts of academic learning time even within a single classroom. The second is that teachers will quickly reach an upper limit on the amount of time by which they can increase allocated instructional time. And the last problem is that increasing allocated time in and of itself does not take into account the quality of the instructional tasks necessary for improving students' reading. Greenwood, DeCaudry, and Hall describe students' active responding as opportunities to respond. Lentz points out that the practice afforded by frequent opportunities to respond across diverse curricular measures will improve skill fluency. Both academic learning time and opportunities to respond recognize that student responding occurs within the context of teacher-controlled curricular materials, but what is not clear is the kind of responding that is best for academic success. Academic learning time and offering opportunities for response offer no guidelines for the types of responses that should be elicited, so a more precise definition of student responding would be helpful for understanding the types of tasks that increase student learning. In an effort of highlighting the importance of the role of responding, we are going to examine different instructional models. We are going to examine the direct instructional model and the whole language instructional model. Both of these models' differences can be characterized by the types of student responding that is elicited in each format. The direct instructional model emphasizes the sequential development of student responding. First, the teacher promotes accuracy by modeling, prompting, and giving corrective feedback when needed. The teacher then presents skills and observes students' responses in isolation until students respond with high accuracy. Next, the teacher will provide frequent practice opportunities in contexts in which the skills are expected to be used. The teachers will provide corrective feedback if needed. The whole language method is an approach that embraces the 2 foundational principles. The first principle of whole language instructional model is that because language is used for communication, instructional practices should incorporate the authentic purpose of language use. The second principle is children will learn better if instruction is adapted to the natural level at which students are using language for communication, and as a result, students can be empowered to learn by directing their own learning. The whole language approach emphasizes providing opportunities to respond across diverse natural language devices. In whole language instructional model, the students are expected to respond by reading, talking, and writing across many different instructional materials. The student, however, chooses the material that is most relevant to him or her, thereby directing his or her own learning experience. The teacher does not direct student responding other than to provide naturalistic opportunities for student responding. The teacher in whole language method provides the students with opportunities to apply the skills across contexts, but does not intervene to promote accuracy or fluency. Assessment models that sample the most relevant forms of student responding in the natural environment should be the most useful measures of academic responding. It is for this reason that models such as curriculum-based measurement, CBM, have good psychometric properties. CBM procedures were developed to analyze academic problems empirically and inductively, using survey-level assessment for instructional placement standards and time series analysis for evaluating interventions. The results of these analyses of actual student functioning provide a baseline of performance but do not indicate which instructional techniques are likely to be most effective in remediating academic deficiencies. Herring stresses assessment as a part of the learning process itself and states, much of the information we have gained about the classroom organization, arrangement of appropriate curricular activities, strategies for presenting cues, stages of learning, and the relevance of these stages to instructional decisions and tactics has come from the use of direct daily measurement of the child's performance on precise academic tasks. Direct measurement on precise academic tasks refers to two measurement practices: direct measurement of behaviors of immediate concern and frequent measurement for the purpose of making instructional decisions and analyzing trends in performance quality similar to those of curriculum-based measurements. Through the use of these assessment practices, inferences about the relevant academic behavior are minimized and decisions about the effectiveness of interventions are arrived at inductively.
Daly et al. State that in 1978, Herring et al.'s specific purpose for the learning hierarchy was to link the interventions to the appropriate stage of the instructional hierarchy. Each stage has certain procedures or treatment components that will more readily aid students in mastering that level. The 4 stages of the instructional model are acquisition, fluency, generalization, and adaptation. Daly et al.'s focus in this article is on the first 3 stages. Herring et al. Defined acquisition as the time between the introduction of a new behavior and the time when the student can demonstrate the behavior with accuracy. The strategies that aid in acquiring a new skill are modeling, demonstration, cues, and prompting. This article takes a look at modeling and prompting sight words in a reading intervention. During modeling, when a student encounters an unknown word, the teacher provides the entire word to the student. With prompting, the teacher will only provide the beginning sound of the unknown word. Espinandino found in 1989 that modeling was more successful than prompting in acquiring sight word recognition. This makes sense since many of the sight words students learn in early grades do not follow phonetic rules. Therefore, prompting the student with only the beginning sound will not always be enough to help the child learn the new words. Modeling, repeatedly exposing the child to the whole word, will be more successful in word acquisition. Once the student has acquired the given skill, we would move on to the stage of fluency. With fluency, there are 2 instructional procedures: drill, with repeated opportunities to respond, and reinforcement. In 1989, Skinner and Shapiro found word drills to be effective at building word fluency rates when using a taped words intervention. This intervention uses a recorded list of words that the student reads along with the tape. Another reading intervention is the word drill. When a student misreads a word, the examiner will model the correct word, and the student will repeat the word a given number of times. Other positive effects of word drills are that they have been found to increase reading fluency when used both in word isolation and within reading passages. Think about this intervention. It includes modeling and drilling, 2 procedures from 2 different from 2 different stages, accuracy and fluency, that lead to the next stage of generalization in new reading passages. So what is generalization? With generalization, students are able to take information previously learned and use that information in new or different settings. An example would be the child that becomes fluent in sight words and can then recognize and read those words fluently in a library book or a content area book such as science or social studies. In order to have generalization, the child must first have mastered accuracy and fluency. In 1994, Daly and Martins completed a study on the effects of acquisition, fluency, and generalization on reading. They examined 3 commonly used reading interventions: taped words, which I discussed earlier, student oral passage preview, a drill-only condition for passage reading, and listening passage preview, which includes modeling of unknown words, drilling for words in context, and training in passage reading. I'm not surprised that the listening passage preview was found to be the most effective in increasing accuracy, fluency, and generalization. This strategy used instructional procedures from each stage: modeling, drilling, and reinforcement. The instructional hierarchy framework can aid teachers in understanding the instructional sequence, instructional procedures, and evaluative decisions when working with students. Figure 1 starts with the objectives based on the 3 stages I have discussed. Under each stage, the appropriate instructional procedures are listed. This was one of the main focuses of this article, making sure the correct interventions are being used with the appropriate stage of learning. The procedures are followed by a question concerning the response of the student. If you can answer yes for the child's responses at one stage, the child is ready to go on to the next stage. If you cannot answer yes, and it is time to go back, relook at the objective, try one of the other instructional procedures, and continue to work with the child until he or she responds accurately. This is where some of the CBMs that we have worked with would come in handy. Use a CBM for baseline data, and then continue with progress monitoring. Based on norm charts for that CBM, the teacher will know when the child is ready to move on to another stage. If a student does not show improvement in accuracy of responding, he or she may be on the wrong instructional level and may need to move from generalization back to fluency or fluency back to acquisition. What if a child just needs more modeling along with the drills? There has been controversy over the effectiveness of modeling and drills at the accuracy and fluency levels. Daly et al. State that further research is needed to establish clear boundaries between each of the phases of learning. Even if the areas overlap, the instructional hierarchy framework is a strong visual aid that can help teachers make instructional decisions.
The purpose of this paper was to demonstrate the link between academic responding and the instructional procedures intended to elicit that academic responding. The authors emphasized the central role of responding in guiding intervention selection while describing the various parameters of academic responding. The authors define academic intervention as the process of eliciting academic responses in a more deliberate and explicit manner beyond those types of responses currently elicited by the natural classroom environment. The academic stimulus materials that elicit responses across a learning hierarchy, including accuracy, fluency, generalization, and adaptation of responding. They also elicit responding across learning contexts, in isolation or in the natural context of typical skill demands. For a consultant working with a teacher of a student experiencing academic difficulty, it is necessary to examine the type of responding that the classroom environment is currently designed to elicit and propose interventions that contain treatment components that elicit responses across the learning hierarchy not currently maintained by the classroom environment. Currently, consultants have at their disposal direct academic assessment and evaluation techniques to assist in evaluating instructional interventions. Unfortunately, their lack of treatment validity limits our ability to hypothesize about instructional factors that functionally control student responding. There is also a need for a technology of functional analysis of academic responding, whereby pre-treatment assessment facilitates selection of effective treatment. So for the future, more research on direct analysis of treatment components is needed before this technology can be developed.